Welcome to Mind and Soul Matters. We're delighted to share with you again another special presentation from a live forum. It is part of a series of live talks organised in collaboration between Mind and Soul Matters and Melville Baha'i community to discuss issues around mental health in our society. I will leave the introduction of our presenter to Dr. Dina Ashurian, MC of the forum. Enjoy this very interesting and informative presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dina, and I'll be your MC for this afternoon. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're meeting on Noongar land today and to pay my respects to the traditional owners of this land and their elders, past and present, and to their cultures. I'd also like to acknowledge our sponsors today. Our first sponsor is Headspace, an Australian non-profit organisation for youth mental health that was established by the Australian government, along with our second sponsor, the Melville Baha'i community. Today's event is part of a series of mental health and well-being forums where we explore relevant topics with the help of expert panel members. Baha'i communities all over the world are working to engage in social discourses on topics that are impacting our communities and society at large. Now, just to start with some background to why we're here today and why are we exploring youth mental health. Youth mental health in Australia has reached critical points, with rising rates of anxiety, depression, and self-harm among young people. Recent studies show that approximately 1 in 4 young Australians experience a mental health condition each year, a statistic that's been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and ongoing socioeconomic challenges. These challenges for the youth include academic pressure, social media influence, and economic uncertainty. All of these leading to intense feelings of stress and sometimes isolation in young people, particularly those facing additional disadvantages. While mental health awareness has improved, many young Australians still encounter systemic barriers to accessing care, and stigma and a lack of mental health literacy continue to deter young people from seeking help. The Australian government and mental health organisations have responded by increasing funding for mental health services and rolling out initiatives like early intervention programs and youth-specific resources such as Headspace. However, we need a concerted effort for all of us to help educate ourselves to what resources and supports are available for prevention and interventions to reverse this trend of declining mental health in Australia's young population. So, with that background, I will now introduce our first speaker, Dr. Jay Thomas. Jay is a chiropractor for 25 years, and he's been looking after joint, muscle, and nerve complaints of people of all ages. He graduated from Macquarie University with a master's in chiropractic and subsequently completed postgraduate diploma training in International Academy of Neuromuscular Skeletal Medicine in 2022. Jay is a member of the Baha'i community, and you might wonder what's his connection with youth mental health. His passion lies with working with youth, with community building, and studying the spiritual and social teachings of religious texts. Jay is a husband and a father of 2 beautiful boys, and he's going to speak to us about some of the work that he does with youth in our communities. Please welcome Jay.
Thanks, Dina. As Dina mentioned, over the last 4 years, I've been running a series of talks for youth from all over the Perth region, but mainly sort of north of the river, for youth aged 15 years and above. We call these talks deepenings because we choose a topic and then we dive deep into what the Baha'i writings say about them, or indeed what any of the great world religions have to say about them. And these talks are topic-based. So either the youth suggest a topic or I pick a topic and I go away and research it, and every month or two we all gather up in Joondalup at a hall there for pizza and socialising and the presentation of the talk. Now, if I just listed the 31 topics that I've covered in the last 4 years, I'm going to run out of time. So I thought I'd just pick 3 key observations that I've had from running these with the youth over the years and how I think they're important to mental health. So the first one is oppression. The second one is my starting 3 topics, the 3 topics that I think are the most important ones to start with. And the third thing I'd like to talk about is it takes a village. Okay, so let's start with oppression. So oppression is defined as the feeling of being heavily burdened mentally or physically by troubles and conditions. And when we think of something oppressive or a group of people being oppressed, we usually think of a terrible ruler, like a tyrant or a government. We think of the oppression of women's rights. We think of the oppression of a people of a different race or colour or culture. We think of economic oppression of the poor and disadvantaged people. Basically, somebody or something that has power over somebody else and uses that power for their personal gain. But interestingly, Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, cites something else entirely as the worst kind of oppression. He says, and I quote, "What oppression is more grievous than a soul seeking the truth should not know where to go from it or from whom to seek it." So it's clear from the Baha'i perspective that oppression, the worst kind of oppression, the oppression that causes the most suffering and sorrow, is the oppression of the mind and the soul that searches for meaning and truth. Now, a main tenet of the Baha'i faith is the removal of all forms of oppression and discrimination. So I'm not saying that the other forms of oppression aren't important, or that we shouldn't do everything in our power to combat all forces of oppression. And we're lucky that we live in a country that, for the greater part, tries to minimise those different types of oppression. But as a thought experiment, if the worst oppression is the oppression of truth, what are the deepest of deep truths that a youth would ask as they are coming out of childhood and into adulthood? And I think it's the fundamental life questions that all human beings will eventually ask. Questions like, why am I here? What is the purpose of our existence? What is this thing that we call the soul? If there is a God or a creator, what is his relationship to us and the world that we live in? Is this existence on earth all that there is? Or is there some ongoing spiritual life after we die? What do we do when we get there? We spend a lot of time ensuring physical growth, but what guidance is there for us to ensure our spiritual growth? What things do we need to do each week to ensure that spiritual growth? If God is all-loving, why does he let bad things happen to good people? Where is the justice in that? What about good and evil? What's going on there? Do I have free will, or is everything that happens to me because of destiny and God's will? These and many other topics, I think, are essential to cover for the youth in their search for truth. They may decide that the information provided is rubbish and choose their own path, and that's absolutely fine. But I think it's essential to give them all the information that is available and let them make up their own mind. So that leads me to my top 3 starting topics, and they centre around hope, purpose, and understanding. So when I was first asked to give these youth deepenings, I thought, what topics were most pivotal to me as a youth, when I was a youth a long time ago, and before we delve into any other topics, what are the first 3 that we should cover? And I thought we should cover these 3. the topics that centre around hope, purpose and understanding. So starting with hope. Now, I'm as big a fan as anybody when it comes to science fiction and futuristic movies. But you have to admit, when you look at the material out there, there's not a lot of positivity when it comes to a hopeful outlook for the future. Most movies are dystopian, the things that are going to go bad. And there's not much good news when it comes to media and current world events. So topic number one for me was the promise of world peace. The promise in the Baha'i writings that world peace is not only possible, but it is inevitable. It must happen. And we covered, what does humanity have to do to get there? What are the stages of world peace? What are the signs that the embryonic stages of world peace has already begun? What can we do to accelerate that process? And what might a peaceful world look like? So that was topic number one, hope and the promise of world peace. Topic number two was purpose. What is the meaning of life? What is the soul? What does the soul need to do in this life? What does spiritual growth look like? Where does the soul go after we die? If we don't have a sense of hope and purpose, then it's hard sometimes to find a reason to get up in the morning. We all need that, and the youth really need that. Topic number three was centred on understanding, particularly understanding our society and the forces at work in our society. What are the forces that help raise us up? The forces that help human progress and encourage people to work together? What are the opposite forces? What are the forces that slow down and stop human progress and push people apart? How do we recognise these forces in our daily lives and protect ourselves from being entrapped by them? What must we do to foster these forces for good, like collaboration, cooperation, and seeing the best in each other? So for me, these were the starting three. These were the top three to start with. And I think it's key when you're looking at the overall mental health for youth. The final thing I'd like to talk about is finding your village and being an active member of your village. What do I mean by that? Well, they say it takes a village to raise a child, and I've definitely seen the evidence for that in my life. I've seen that children in primary school, junior youth in early high school, and youth from 15 ages and aboveward all need a safe place to come together and interact, to build bonds of friendship, discuss things that are important to them, ask questions, and have fun together. Whilst the primary responsibility of raising a child or youth will always be with the parents, the help of other like-minded individuals, each with their unique skill sets and interests, goes so much further if everybody is working together. And that's where the importance of the village comes in. So find a village that resonates with you. Speak to other youth and other parents about what has worked for them. Don't be content with waiting to answer the big questions or build the qualities in your children and youth. Because one thing is for sure, if you don't guide them and direct their growth, someone or something else will guide and direct their growth. And I wouldn't trust social media to raise my child. So when I was a child and my mum and dad were looking for their village and they found the Baha'i faith, they said, great, we've got 3 young children. Have you got any spiritual education for children's classes? And this is a long time ago. And the community that they were in at the time said, no, I'm sorry, we don't have any classes running at the moment. We don't have any curriculum, we don't have any lesson plans, but we have this box of resources here. Good luck. And that started their involvement in the village. And 40 years on, they're still going. They've taught hundreds of kids. They've taught us, they've taught their grandchildren. So be involved in your village. But the Baha'i world community realised that to create great villages in each locality that we live, we need to be more systematic than that. So for the last 25 plus years, the Baha'i community all over the world have been learning and training how can we do better to create villages conducive to the growth of a youth. And that involves children's spiritual education after school or on the weekend. The goal of these education classes is to cultivate qualities such as love, forgiveness and justice, and help them apply these qualities to their own lives and the lives around them. Once the children have reached high school age, there's a key time of growth and development where they're aged 12 to 14. We've come to call this the junior youth age. And the junior youth spiritual empowerment program is a very special program that has the goals of enhancing the junior youth's power of expression, sharpening their spiritual perception, analysing the constructive and destructive forces of society, and changing their surroundings through getting them to come up with ideas for service projects and being actively involved in these service projects. And then once these junior youth are 15 years and above, there's many other programs that they can participate in to take control of their own spiritual development, give them opportunities to serve the community, especially through helping run the same children's classes and the same junior youth groups that they themselves used to participate in. So you can see this growth process where the youth are seeing the importance of paying it forward and helping the next generation. So what I'm running each month or two with my topic-based talks for the youth is only a very small part of a much larger village, a village which learns and trains and does everything that they can to ensure the full growth of these youth, physically, mentally and spiritually, as they progress from childhood to adulthood. And I might add that these talks have been so popular that now we're starting them younger. We're starting them with junior youth because the 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds want this information as well. So in finishing, unfortunately, I don't have any data or I don't have any statistics of what the mental health of the youth in the Baha'i community are like compared to the mental health in the wider community. I can't tell you what our success rates are. All these youth will be subject to the same stresses, the same life challenges that everyone faces. The youth who are involved in these activities are not immune from these challenges. All I can share with you is my observations. I see children, junior youth and youth that are engaged in a process of learning about the world. I see them having hope for the future and wanting to contribute to that future. I see them volunteering parts of their week to help support the children's classes, help other teachers, help organise and run the junior youth groups. I see them finishing high school and taking time off work or tertiary studies to volunteer a full year of their time to building community service in all of these activities. I see them building enormous potential and capacity in themselves for understanding the world, for a meaningful contribution to society, much, much more than I had when I was their age. And I see them using that capacity to make the world a better place. And I think, ultimately, that's all any parent would wish for their child to grow up happy, fulfilled, being with a group of like-minded individuals and use their capacity to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I think Jay highlighted some of those preventive type programs that I spoke about earlier. So I spoke about prevention and interventions, and some of the things you highlighted were really the preventive aspects. So the village you talk about are those support systems that are important in one's life and one's well-being. The virtue of hope, having hope is very important for our well-being and the sort of the vision we have of the world that we're heading towards. Thank you. And also all the questions you raised. Did you know that children on average ask 300 questions per day? Guess how many adults ask per day? A fraction of that, 30. So those questions are really rife in their minds. And, we need to provide an environment where we can answer those correctly and guide them in the right direction. So thank you very much, Jay. I'd like to say a very big thank you to Headspace for co-sponsoring this event, along with the Baha'i community of Melville. Thank you to our expert panelists and the organizing task force.
If you found today's episode useful, remember to share an episode with a friend and follow Mind and Soul Matters on your preferred podcast platform and on social media. Look forward to your company next time on Mind and Soul Matters.